Hi, welcome to GCSE Poetry number 5, Lesson 5. We're going to look at Robert Browning. And what we're going to look at in particular is his use of the dramatic monologue. We're going to look at two of his poems. This is for GCSE. This is the creative writing unit. We're trying to approach unseen and seen poetry in a creative way to help you feel confident about reading poetry and approaching it and recreating it in ways that show your engagement. But before I start, I should just give you a little bit of a warning. It's kind of like the warning I should give I give all students when we do Romeo and Juliet. There are explicit and mature ideas and materials in Robert Browning's poetry. And if you're someone who is easily offended, you should just be cautious, because art, literature, poetry, part of what makes it exciting is that it challenges our accepted ideas of what is right and wrong. And there's nothing in today's lesson that is untoward, but I'm warning you that if you find something here upsetting, you should just be cautious and perhaps think about what's going on and why the things you're looking at or reading are causing you to think and feel these things, because that's what literature is about. Okay, so let's start by looking right away into something quite mature. Here are two images, both photographs about 100 years apart. What links these two images? And what is art's obligation to deal with violence towards women? That's something I would like you to think about. So if I was looking at these with my partner, I would talk about, it's so strange how the image on the left seems to have had the face scratched out, like he doesn't want, it seems like a man doesn't want to look at the face. There's something about the face that upsets him, and I can see the scratch marks. The one on the right, I see the violence in the eyes and the red in particular the left eye, and it contrasts or it links with the lipstick, and it seems her red hair. She's looking directly at the photograph. Almost like two people are looking at the camera. One is neutral and one is weeping, and I notice the curtains in the background. I don't know where she is, but art's obligation, like all of our obligations, is to look at all the forms of violence and contradictions in society, and not to say, and not only to present a rosy picture of the world. That's probably what I would talk about if we were thinking about those. I want to take you a little bit further, and I want you to think about these facts. On average, domestic abuse victims will have been assaulted 35 times before reporting it to the police. Domestic abuse is the single most quoted reason a person becomes homeless. In 2018, 173 people were killed in domestic violence-related homicides. 3/4 of the victims of domestic killings were of women, where the suspects were male partners, ex-partners, or family members. Could you pause and talk to the person you're with, or if not, write in your books? Why is it that men hate women, and why do men hurt women? And what, if anything, can poetry teach us about violence towards women? Now, this is an important idea that I want you to think about, because I want you to link to your learning. Oops, there we go. I'm going to change the light. Okay, so if you pause now and write something. Okay, great. So I've asked you to look at some images, and I've warned you that some of the topics we're going to look at today are a bit intense, even though they're very old. I mean, it's 150 years old, I think. Some of the poems we're reading, but you're going to see they're quite radical. Robert Browning, we've talked about the themes of violence, because both these poems are going to involve violence against women. It's not usually what's talked about. What's talked about with Robert Browning is his great innovation of the dramatic monologue. And what the dramatic monologue is one character speaking for a significant period of time, and we learn, and they present themselves dramatically. And what we do is we read the performance, but we also read behind the performance what we can learn about the character behind them. And I'm going to have some kind of dramatic exercises to enter us into the poems that we're looking at. And we're going to remind ourselves what we do when we read. We just read the poem, we reread the poem, we annotate things that we like, questions that we have. We try to break the poem into parts. For the second poem, which is My Last Duchess, I have a video that I made a long time ago, and I'll obviously be linking that at the end. So let's start. So we're going to interview a killer, and we've got him under arrest, and he's killed someone called Porphyria, and he won't tell us his name. We're labeling him at the station Porphyria's lover. Could you predict what was his motive? What murder weapon did he use? And did he try to hide the body? Okay, if you could just pause this video now and predict. We predict to already show that we anticipate things based on titles and what we imagine will happen. So we already have something to compare to when we do a reading. Okay, so you've predicted. Now, what we're going to do, this is called Interpolated Questions. So we're going to interrogate the witness. And the answers are going to be the killer's actual words. And were you to sit with someone, what you'd be doing is you'd have a copy of what the criminal has said, and you'd be annotating and analyzing the language for clues. And we're going to build a psychological profile for the killer, so no clue is too small. Anything you think might be going on is a possibility, okay? But since you're probably not doing this with a partner, you're on your own, I'm going to ask you to pause the video every once in a while and just take down words that you think are important, that reveal something about this character that we're interrogating. So, state your name for the recording. Porphyria's lover. What was the weather on the night of the storm? The sullen wind tore the elm tops down for spite. Whoa. The sullen wind, the wind tore. That verb tore is doing a lot. And the wind is neutral. Nature has no motives. Why would it do it for spite? This guy clearly has some issues going on. How did you feel? I listened with heart fit to break. Oh, okay. So you were sad or you were heartbroken? What's going on there? Oh, she wasn't home. Okay, so what did you do when she got home? What did she do when she got home? She laid her soiled gloves by, untied her... Oh, she laid her soiled gloves by, untied her hat, and let the damp hair fall. Oh, okay. Soiled gloves. What were they soiled with? Dirty. Do you mean dirty gloves? Damp. So was it raining or something? Her damp hair maybe makes it seem like it was raining. So what'd she do next? Did she come to touch you? She put my arm around her waist and made her smooth white shoulder bare. Oh, so you were lovers. You were quite intimate. That's nice. What did you notice about her in particular? Her yellow hair displaced, and stooping made my cheek lie there and spread all her yellow hair. Oh, okay, so her hair was really important to you, I guess. Did she say anything? Murmuring how she loved me. Why do you say murmuring? What does murmuring mean? It doesn't sound like a nice thing. It doesn't sound like whispering or kissing. It's murmuring. Sounds strange. Like, did you think she was concealing something? Whoa, you're not looking so good. What were you sure to do? What'd you notice about her eyes? I looked up at her eyes, happy and proud. Oh, so she was in a good mood. What did you think she thought of you? She worshipped me. Oh, okay. What did you think of her? That moment she was mine fair, perfectly pure and good. Okay, so I'm not getting it, man. Like, what's going on? I mean, you might pause here and look at some of these lines. Any of these lines so far strike you as something you want to take down that might reveal what kind of character this is? Whoa. You're getting a bit creepy now. How did you kill her? I wound her hair, I wound 3 times her little throat around and strangled her. Whoa. I thought you liked her hair. What's going on here? Did you want her to suffer and feel pain? No pain felt she. I'm quite sure she felt no pain. How do you know? Why does it matter? You were killing her. After killing her, what'd you do? I warily opened her lids again, laughed the blue eyes without a stain. Oh, God. Without a stain? What did they have? What stain was in it to begin with? And warily? Well, why warily? Why were you nervous? Oh, because it's a creepy thing to do? Open somebody's eyes? Why did you unloosen her hair? Untightened, her cheek once more blushed bright beneath my burning kiss. Oh, so you let the hair out, so the blood, it was as if she was alive. Whoa. And then you kissed her? Wow, that's creepy, man. I'm not feeling it. What's going on? Untightened, blushed bright. You wanted to control her. You wanted her to be something. Why was the body placed upright when we found you? She was upright. So you put her head up as before, and you sit together. So just so that it was as if she was alive, like she was a doll, or propped. Almost means like you controlled her like a puppet. How long had she sat with her? How long had you sat with her? And all night long we had not stirred, and yet God has not said a word. So you sat like that all night until we found you. Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Oh, my God. Okay. I don't understand what's going on, guys. So I'm just going to change the light. We're going to take a look at this whole poem, Porphyria's Lover. And what I want to do is I want to find evidence, okay? And I'm going to find evidence, and I need you to read it with this in mind. I want a motive, I want method, I want post-death treatment of body, and I want emotional state. And I want you to extract all those details from this. And we're going to look really closely for that because he's given us the whole he's given us everything we need in an interview, and it's all here in this poem. So let's see if we can read it to find out what's actually going on. Okay, the rain. Here, I'll bring this in closer so that we really take a good look. The rain set early tonight. The sullen wind was soon awake. It tore the elm trees down for spite. Nature is alive and has a motive, which is weird, and did its worst to vex the lake. I listened with heart fit to break. So he was emotional state, anxious, sad. I wonder what he was sad about. When glided in Porphyria, so glided in makes me think, look how different what different her mood is. Straight, she shut the cold out. She shut the cold out and kneeled and made the cheerless grey blaze up. So see, P is happy and joyful, and the cottage warm. Which done, she rose, and from her form withdrew her dripping cloak and shawl. Okay, so it was raining outside. Oh yes, because of the weather. And laid her soiled gloves by. Soiled is strange. That's a pregnant word. Soiled, like dirtied. But by what? Untied her hat and let the damp hair fall. And last she sat down by my side and called me. When no voice replied, she put my arm around her waist. Okay, so hold on. So here I'm going to say I see this first part, her entry, her return home. And now she tries to engage the main character. When no voice replied, she put my arm around her waist and made her smooth white shoulder bare, and her yellow hair displaced, and stooping, made my cheek lie there, and spread o'er all her yellow hair, murmuring how she loved me. So look at this intimacy. That's a quite, that's an intimate, that image shows beauty and love, proximity. She too weak for all her heart's endeavor to see its struggling passion free from pride and vainer ties dissever and give herself to me forever. She too weak for all her heart's endeavor. She was too weak to do whatever her heart wanted to do and to set its struggling passion free from pride and vainer ties. So pride and vanity, she couldn't get away from these are sins. So she couldn't get away from those. These words, dissever and struggling, seem to me have double meanings of violence and pain. And he somehow wanted her. How forever? How forever? He has her. She loves him. Why does he want her forever? But passions sometimes would prevail, nor could tonight's gay feast restrain a sudden thought of one so pale for love of her, and all in vain. So he loves her, but to no end. Why? Why is it vain? Why is it useless? Why is it useless, this love? So, she was come through wind and rain. Be sure, he's speaking to us. I looked up at her eyes. Okay, so he's looking at her eyes. Happy and proud. At last I knew Porphyria worshipped me. Okay. So she loved him. Worshipped is more. Surprise made my heart grow swell, and still it grew while I debated what to do. What does he think? Does he think she has been somewhere? Jealous? I mean, it makes me go back to this idea. Why do men want to hurt and control women? That moment, she was mine. Mine fair, perfectly good and pure. Perfectly pure and good. So, I found a thing to do. So he wants to fix her? Keep her forever? Control her, maybe? So in a moment, he takes all her hair. In one long yellow string, I wound 3 times her little throat around and strangled her. Whoa. No pain felt she. I'm quite sure she felt no pain. Why is this important to him, that she doesn't suffer? As a shut bud that holds a bee, what a simile. So a flower, so the bee flickers in there, in the bud. So her eyes were there. I warily opened her lids again. Again laughed the blue eyes. What a beautiful image. That verb does everything. Laughed. You can almost see the laughter in her eyes. But laughed the blue eyes without a stain. What is this? What is this stain? What has she done? Why does he want her perfect? What's he afraid of? And I untightened next the tress about her neck, her cheeks once more blushed bright beneath my burning kiss, as if alive again. Is it regret or some return? I don't know. I propped her head up as before, almost like she's a doll. Only this time my shoulder bore her head, which droops upon it still, the smiling, rosy little head, so glad it has its utmost will, that all it scorned at once is fled, and I, its love, am gained instead. So somehow, by killing her, he's gained. She stays the same. She stays put, stays the same. Porphyry's love, she guessed not how her darling once wish would be heard. And thus we sit, her darling one wish would be heard. What is that wish? And thus we sit together now, and all night long we have not stirred, and God has not said a word. Where is God's punishment? I can see this guy he wants to be punished. He wants to be tortured. He doesn't really know why he's done it. It might be jealousy, but I think you'd have to read the poem quite carefully to see a kind of paranoia. Maybe he wants to keep her like that forever. It's really strange. He's become completely deranged. If you want to pause right now, I'd suggest that you reread the poem and see what you can come up with in terms of motive, method, post-death treatment of body, and emotional state. Again, it's only when you reread the poem that you're really going to start to understand what you think is going on. Okay, now that you've read the poem with me and on your own, I'd like you to take 5 minutes and pause this video, and I'd like you to do a reflective journal. I want you to answer these questions. How does Browning create the character? What does he reveal on purpose? So what does the character show you on purpose? And what's he reveal by mistake? Do you sympathize with the killer? Is it right that the poem invites you into the killer's mind? We are looking into the mind of a man who's killed a woman almost for no reason, seemingly. Is that okay? Is that okay that art does that? I mean, is that something that makes you uncomfortable, or is there something wrong with that? I'd like you to pause this video. You can use evidence. It's not absolutely necessary for this one. I just want you to think about, what do you know about this character so far? Okay? Okay, so you've read the poem twice, once with me, at least once on your own. Hopefully you've read it more than that. You've taken some time to annotate the poem for yourself and with me, and you've done a reflective journal. Now let's do another poem, the studied poem, the poem you need to know for the course, My Last Duchess. And I'm going to take you on another case, detectives. So here's our second case in the second dramatic monologue. I welcome you to the Jane Detective Agency, and this is the case of the Last Duchess. So, detectives, it seems the Medicis, the most powerful and richest family in Italy, have hired us to find out what's happened to their daughter. She's died mysteriously. She married this powerful duke, and they gave a huge dowry with her. And, their new money, they wanted to get some prestige to the family, so they married off to this duke. But it seems that the duke, he added prestige to the family, but she's died really recently and really strangely. And it looks like the duke is now seeking a new marriage with another rich family. And there's a party tonight. So she's hired us, private detectives. We need to get some evidence. We need to get some dirt on him, and we need to figure out if we can find out what's happened. So this is the suspect. Detectives, I would like you to pause this video, and I'd like you to take a really close look at this duke, and I want you to talk about what kind of guy is he. I want you to think about the quality of the material, the symbolic value, the wealth, the power, the prestige. So what I'm trying to get you to do is zoom in on details like a detective, because if you can zoom in on very particular details, you can start to do that in a poem as well. So since you're alone, this is the things I would notice. Right away, I notice all the things he wants to show off. He wants to show he can play music, he's got books, he's got instruments of navigation, he's got all these materials, he's got a fur coat, he's got a gold chain, he's got really lavish, he is showing off, he is a show-off, and he wants you to know how much power he has. This is the woman that's died. Could you do the same exercise for her? And could you zoom in on a detail and kind of justify X suggests Y because of Z? So for me, the the fact that she's showing off that jewel in the center of her face, center of her chest, suggests that she is proud of that jewel because it features so prominently, and it's carefully positioned towards her heart and in the center of her body. I think that her face suggests that she's sad because she's almost showing no emotion. So there's and her hand conceals something, suggesting that perhaps she has a secret because we can't really see, but I feel like she's wanting to tell me something. These are all things we could think of. This is a picture of her a private painting of her in a more relaxed setting. You might want to pause and think, okay, well, what's she like here different to what she's like here? What's that all about? And how are those details? How can they look at those feet? Look at her shoulder as in Porphyria's lover. There seems a joy and relaxation. I wonder who this painting was for. Can you compare what she's like when she's relaxed and when she's on show privately or publicly? Okay, so now here I'm going to have to give a warning. This is art. Art sometimes can upset people. You're not to be upset. This is an exercise. Please don't get upset. This is a very famous painting, but in the play of this, it's a little bit different. So this painting doesn't exist any longer, and it's a private picture the Duchess had made, and it's incredibly private setting, and it was given to a lover of hers, not the Duke. So I want you to think about if you could describe in detail what you see here, just like you did with the other ones. Whoa. Do you want to look at that again? Oh my goodness. What is going on here? This painting. What are the details here? What do they suggest? What do you think the Duke thought when he saw this painting? Can you write down your ideas in your book? Now we're starting to think about a motive, okay? Now, the thing is, we don't have the whole poem. We only have these fragments. Someone's been following them around. So here are some fragments. I'm going to give you 4 different slides of fragments. I want you to pause and just look at what language or what things can you draw from here that could help us figure out what's going on. So here's the first set of fragments. Here are the second set of fragments. Here are the third set of fragments. Here are the fourth set of fragments. Now, of course, you can pause the video at any time. You can use the materials as I set them up on the Google Classroom. But could you just look really carefully at this evidence, and can you tell me, do you have enough evidence to show, which we suspect, that the Duke has murdered his wife? Now, we need a motive. We need a clear motive, just like in the other one, and it would be really good if we can get evidence to back up that motive. So let's take a look at the whole poem, this really incredibly famous poem, My Last Duchess. I'm going to give it a quick read, and if you want a more proper read, you can do that with me on my YouTube channel. That's My Last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that a piece of wonder now. So she's dead, but he keeps a painting. He keeps a painting of her. I call that a piece of wonder now. Frau Pandolf's hands work busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you to sit and look at her? I said Frau Pandolf by design. He's showing off, okay? This is a famous painter. It's like showing off his designer clothes, you know? He's saying, look, I got this painting made really on purpose for something special. For never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, that face, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none puts the curtain I have drawn for you but I. Do you notice the way he gets the aside? And it's this idea of control. And this whisper, this side thing. I'm the only one that gets to control this. No one's looked at this without turning to me and said, if they dare, how such a glance came there. So not the first are you to turn and ask thus. So you're not the first to look at me and ask, okay, what's the deal? Look, the thing is, it was not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy, not just husband. Well, who then? Who? He seems to be a bit jealous. He doesn't like that she's happy or joy comes to her. Perhaps Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much. Her cloth goes over, but it's the too much that sticks out. Paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. His language seems to hint or reveal something. He's not as explicit as the killer in Porphyria's Lover. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how should I say? That's one of my favorite. That pause, that hesitation. It shows he's conscious. He's really consciously presenting himself. She was too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. She was not, she didn't distinguishing between quality. She was too positive. It was all one. My favor, the drooping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherry, some officious fool broke in the orchard for her. Oh, jealous, jelly belly. So, look, what I gave her, the weather, some cherries, all the same. That makes him jealous. It's not fair. She rode, even some horse she rode around, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. There's that blush. So she was too happy. Look at this. She thanked men, good. But thanks somehow, I know not how. As, again, that hesitation speaks. He had no proof, but men were just made happy by her. And he's annoyed because as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anyone's gift. I matter. 900 years old name. I'm privileged. I'm status. You shouldn't put me along with the rest of these jokers. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Who'd lower themselves to do that? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will, he's being funny because he's speaking quite beautifully. Have you noticed that these are all in couplets and the rhyme doesn't clang at the end of the line? It's so natural. To make your will quite clear to such a one and say, just this or that in you disgusts me. Here you miss or there you exceed the mark. This is what he wanted to say to her. Wanted to say. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, even then would be some stooping. And I choose never to stoop. I will not lower myself to tell her. Forget it. Oh, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her. But who passed without the same smile? This grew. I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. He is very careful. He suggests without revealing. So, will it please you rise? Whoa. We'll meet the company below, then. I repeat, the Count, your master. So he is speaking to a servant of a new master. He's known to be really munificent. He's known to be really generous. And he's going to give me a big dowry because now the Duke is saying he's going to marry someone else, though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. He wants the dowry or the daughter, it's unclear. Let's go together, sir. Oh, and here's a last sculpture he shows him. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse. Thought a rarity, which Klaus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. This last image, he's an art lover, fine, but could you interpret that last sculpture? You can look it up on the internet, but again, it would be really much cooler if you could do it on your own. So this has gone on quite a long time. I hope that you've seen that. I think we can get enough evidence, detectives, to put this guy away, but it's really hard. It's really hard because he never reveals anything explicitly. Not like Porphyria's lover. He just hints at it. He just hints at stuff. So what I'd like you to do is reread the poem on your own. See if you can find those key quotes that really reveal something about this guy, about him, which he doesn't mean to reveal, and stuff he's suggesting and hinting at. And if you can, you're really starting to do language analysis and you're starting to think about, okay, what does this all mean? Okay, now that you've read the poem a few times, at least, and this is a poem you need to know, My Last Duchess is on the chorus, it's one of the scene poems, you need to know it backwards and forwards, it's an absolutely rock star poem. I've learned to love it more and more every year I teach it. I'd like you to take a moment and I'd like you to have 5 to 10 minutes of journal response. What do you think's going on in the poem? I can give you an example of what I've done here. And you can see this in the book here. I'll just show you. On page 22, you can see some of the interview questions for Porphyria's lover, but you can also see my example of the journal entry. The Duke is arrogant, boastful, and controlling. He loves keeping a painting of his dead wife to show off. He's careful with his words. He is jealous and cocky. He doesn't like that she is nice. He cannot pin anything on her, but he resents that she isn't impressed with his status and power. The clues suggest without saying outright that he had his wife killed and she was below him. So these are all my ways of using the evidence and responding and finding things in the poem that I want to talk about that mean something to me. Could you use this as a model for yourself? Could you take 7 to 10 minutes and respond? And you've got to make sure that you use the evidence of the poem. It really doesn't matter about being right or wrong here. It's about learning to respond in a personal way to what you think's going on in the poem. Okay, you've read the poem a few times. You've read 2 of Browning's poems. You've had a personal journal response. Now I'd like you to go to the last task. I'd like you to go to the last task, which is I'd like you to do a piece of creative writing where you take on the voice of the Duke. You really need to show off. Now again, if you go to this booklet on page 23, you're going to see my example of this in full, so you get a full exemplar idea of what it is that I'm looking for. But I'm just going to walk you through some things I want you to think about. You need to really show off, and the jealousy, you want to show off this show off, and the jealousy that motivated this murder. Why does the Duke boast? How does he show his controlling nature? Why does he keep the painting? What made him angry? What shows his arrogance? What does he reveal on purpose? What does he conceal? For me, this is really the main aesthetic question when it comes to the dramatic monologue. What does the poet have the character show you on purpose, and what can you interpret underneath? And how does the Duke show that he has no regret for what he's done? What's his next plan? Okay, so these are all the quotes that I would say are quite crucial for using in this exercise. You'll notice that if you are reading a poem and writing about it creatively, you're engaging with it in a level that will help you get to a deeper comprehension of what the poem means to you. So that when we revise these poems and we have to write about them analytically, you'll be more confident and more clear about what you need to do. Okay, so this is an example, just 2 paragraphs from mine. This is the one. Do you want to see it up close? I own this place. I can do what I like, man. I'm the one that pulls the curtain back. I own this. I own it. Look, let me just pull the curtain. Yes, that's her. She looked good. I mean, the painter made her look good, but she looked like that. She did when she was alive. Yeah, her slanted eyes and her gentle hands, all beautiful. But her face, I mean, it was all right, but it wasn't like that joy that bursts in her cheek came from her husband. That's me? Nah. I wasn't the only thing that brought her joy. No, she spent a lot of time with, how should I say this without sounding vulgar? Other people in the house? She liked everyone. Salesmen, cleaners, servants. She was overly familiar with them all. She would call it kind. I called it pathetic. She always smiled at the gardener. He brought her baskets and baskets of bounty. She gorged herself on fruit, stuffed her greedy mouth to the brim. Red berries like blood pressed and painted her lips. And on and on. What I've done there is I've tried to use the poem to imagine the scene. Language, imagery, structure. I've generated ideas, planned, explored, and edited all. That's what I'd like you to do, okay? And again, this first unit is creative writing, and I'd like you to be able to engage with creative writing for all the poems, but every 2 weeks I want a sustained piece of creative writing, and that's why I give you this model. So this is the first sustained creative piece of writing that I'd like you to do. But for you, maybe one of the other poems appealed to you, so you could go and do that as well, but this one I would like you all to do. So to end, I should be clear, that should be your homework. That will be the way you really know that you've done the poem, that you've read and annotated and done all these pieces, but that the creative writing is the thing that you've sustained yourself in doing. So today you've read the poem, you've exercised your predictive powers. Hopefully you can define or at least say something about a dramatic monologue. You're practicing how to read poems in different ways. And hopefully you can say something about Browning's techniques. If Browning's poems have appealed to you in any way, I suggest you go look up some more. His dramatic monologues are extremely well known and super influential and worth spending some time on. I'm going to attach the video doing some more analysis of My Last Duchess. Of course, you should follow along and do that all for homework. And as I end, I just want you to think about, really, let's go back to our starter. Now, if we step back from the poem, zoom out for a second and think about thematic. Okay, they're masterworks aesthetically of voice and play and language and character. But what's up with these characters and their hatred of women and their hurting of women? And is there something that this poem, could you argue that the exam board is wrong for putting both of these poems, by the way, are on the spec? But is it that? Or can we learn something about why men commit violence to women? Can we learn something about that here from this poem? What can we learn? What has Browning taught us about the motivation, the ideas, and the feelings that animate that? This is an excellent poem. I really suggest that you spend some time with it. I hope you're learning. I hope your creative writing goes well and that you find a way of engaging and capturing the voice of the Duke. If you want, as a stretch exercise, maybe you might want to take the voice of the Duchess. Okay, I hope you are learning well, and I look forward to hearing from you and talking to you soon.